Good morning and aloha gang, what's up? This is John coming at you from Car Wheeler Motors, and as promised, this is part 2 of the two-part series for the review of the Electromotion Escape XR 2024. Now, this is not something that's new to the channel. We've always done this. We go a little bit deeper into the bike and really, try to get a good understanding of how the bike is built, and in this case, what's new for the bike. Now, there's a lot of things that Electromotion, for whatever reason, didn't necessarily advertise, and it's very hard to see from the pictures. But with this review and breakdown, you will definitely see what's different. Some things are obvious, some things are a little bit more subtle, but all things make a big difference. So with that, stay tuned, and thanks for watching. Right on. So the first thing that we're gonna do, which is like the easiest thing to get to when we are looking at the new 2024 Electromotion Escape XR, is the drivetrain. Now, from the outside, the drivetrain is exactly the same, and of course you're still getting that billet aluminum quality that you find from the 2020 model to current, and the bike is still solid on the drivetrain. Now, the one thing that I did notice, and I seen it in the reviews, or I did see it in the product description, was that the flywheel was optional. So once we take this cover off, we can definitely see a little better into the drivetrain of the XR, and it is as promised. It's a gear driven 4-plate clutch, diaphragm clutch, and this is the standard base for all 2020 to current models for Electromotion. And this platform has been, number one, it's been very reliable, it's been very solid. I haven't had anybody have issues with the gears as far as the mesh, as far as the wear and tear. Like, they've been excellent. The clutch plates, of course, depending on how much you use the clutch, you would have to change out, and that seems to be a little bit more of an act of Congress, given that the clutch and the gear diaphragm is behind here, which entails you to take out the whole drivetrain, vice, say, a gas bike, where you would normally take off the cover here, the clutch basket would be there, and you can just pull it and work on it from there without removing the whole case. I believe that's a design that they upgraded for the Factor E, if you take a look at that, and I have a video of that explaining a little bit better. But oil bath, of course, with the clutch. And in the XR, you have the diaphragm clutch. In the X, and this is another thing that I mentioned to Electromotion a long time ago, but for whatever reason, they just didn't bite onto it until now. But in the X, you have I would say a full diaphragm clutch basket. Now, it's the same, it looks the same, and unfortunately I don't have an X to show you, but it should look the same as this gear, but you don't have the clutch plates. And what that means is you get all the benefits of the gear-to-gear drive, as far as the torque, the strength, and the reliability of the gears, but you don't get a clutch. You get the PRB on the handle instead of the master cylinder for the clutch, and that's kind of okay. So if you're trying to save some money and you don't think that you will actually use the clutch that often, and some will say yes, some will say no. For me personally, I don't use the clutch all the time. I mean, I want to say 70% of the time, I'm not using the clutch. It's just for those hill climbs and those tech things. But when I'm riding just through single track, I actually like my PRB. If you're trying to save some money, buy an Escape X, which is essentially the same bike platform with just a solid gear here. And like I said, you get all the benefits. And if you want to add a clutch in later, because the bottom, I guess you would say, the lower half of the trans is the same, you just have to buy this clutch pack, or the gear here, open this up, put a hydraulic master cylinder on your left hand side for your clutch lever, of course, and then you can have a clutch. You can make this bike. You can buy a lower grade model, and if you find that you need the clutch, you can purchase the clutch separately and then add it on. Wow, you know, what a concept, right? I mentioned this to them a while ago, because essentially the regular E-Scape and the E-Pure Sport had a belt drive, and myself, I've broken 2 belts, and I'm not even riding extremely hard stuff. You know, it was just a circumstance thing where the belts broke, and I had to go through the whole act of Congress of changing the belt, like I said, opening this up and whatnot, just to change a belt that I was scared of breaking again. So now with the E-Scape X and the XR, the X no clutch, but you can add a clutch, and the XR comes with the clutch. But what they both don't come with is the flywheel hub. And if you've seen my other video from a 2021 E-Pure race, I believe, the flywheel weight would be right here, and then you wouldn't be able to see your gears. But that weight gave the bike a little bit more inertia, momentum. It gave it a little bit more response. When you dump the clutch, it would grab more. And I think overall, that's why in the last video I mentioned that the bike rides smoother. It doesn't have as much weight moving with the engine or the motor here to kind of like give it that luggy feel. Or it depends on what you want, right? You can have it snap. If you wind it up and you dump the clutch, the weight will definitely give you more lift. But when you're just riding through single track stuff, it feels a little bit more laggy because it has to move more weight. Now, does that have any effect on range? Not exactly sure. I've done a couple tests with and without the without the flywheel in the past, and the range, it to me was unnoticeable. Like if there was a gain or if there was an advantage without having the flywheel weight, I couldn't really see it. And of course, conditions and the ride style really depend on range as well. So with that being said, you can add the clutch weight if you want a little bit more pop, if you want a little bit more if you want a different feel when you're riding the bike. And just to give you an example, this used to be off one of a 2022 trials bike that I have, and I felt like these are 2 additional weights that you could add to the flywheel hub. So initially you'd have a hub mounted, and then you could take on and off 2 plates to add more weight or to reduce the weight. So that's how that's how in-depth Emotion originally went with the flywheel weight. Now I'm not sure if they're giving you this option. In the 2022 E-Scape R, there was just the hub, and there was no holes to add or remove other weights. So if you guys are out there checking out the flywheel weight, you can let me know what it is. I can see what the part is. But for right now, I think I'm gonna run the bike as is. It feels great. I want to get a feel for the new gearing, of course, which I mentioned was 38 tooth in the back. I believe this is like a 10 in the front. So the gearing is a lot different from your typical E-Scape R or E-Pure Race, where you had like a 10 in the front and like a 56 in the back, but it was a 428. So the torque is a lot different. But as we get into it later, the controller is actually upgraded as well. So the controller is a totally different controller than what we are currently running in the 2023 models. And let's get into that next. All right, so we were able to get the plastics off, the seat off, the back fender off, and we're gonna start up with this cluster. So like I mentioned in the first video, there's only 3 wires coming in from the top, which is quite good. Before, you had the display, you had the throttle, you had the map button, you had the FRB button, you had your switch, and it was a bunch of stuff. So they really condensed this thing. For whatever reason, this bike comes with these weird, I guess, French zip ties. I don't know. They're kind of whack. So we're gonna get rid of those. I didn't even tighten those. Well, I did on this side, but they're kind of weird. So we're gonna just replace those with regular zip ties that are kind of strong. But like I said, you know, 3 wires coming in from the handlebars, and then that's very, very condensed. Now, when you get into the frame, man, it is gnarly. So, as shown from before, the Domino throttle had 2 wires, and now the 2 wires, the throttle 1 and throttle 2 wires, are hooked up. I've tried to eliminate one or the other, and I didn't really see a difference as far as you know, just spinning it, letting the wheel spin here. I mean, the response was the same. It seemed to go as fast in the little blips that I did, but I'm not too sure. Maybe this is something that I gotta look into, and I'll get back with you guys on what the 2 throttle connectors are for and why you take one off and the other one still works. I'm not too sure. You have your switch here, your regular power switch. That is for this, obviously, for the on and off. And then also you have your, it's a different type of connector, but it's like a regular pin connector for your TFT screen. Now, I believe there should be a way to bypass this if you want to make a regular analog battery meter, but you know, that's next video, I guess. But yeah, everything is here. There is a cluster wire, and if I'm not mistaken, the cluster wire, I believe, is just straight the 12 volts from the inverter back here. Oh, sorry, yeah, the DC input inverter. So it goes from the 50 volts to 12 volts, and then you can do what you want here. So we don't have a headlight, so if you want to add the headlight, and of course, I just want to make that disclaimer out there. The American models do not come with a headlight. France loves to tease us with the headlight because in Europe, the bike is road legal. But in America, we haven't gotten there yet. So you can add a headlight that doesn't make it road legal, but you can add a headlight just to have, and I believe this is the 12 volts that will supply power to that. And the one thing that we did hook up here is the, as you know, you guessed it, our PRB. Now, I personally like the PRB, and I run it under the clutch lever. I use this a lot, just as a straight up rear brake, a left hand rear brake. It gives you enough power to decelerate slowly in the corners, and you can adjust this, of course, because it is adjustable. It's variable. It's not just on and off like our FRB. But yeah, you know, this thing works great. It's more expensive than the PRBR that mounts on top of your master cylinder clutch here. But to me, having it lower and being able to pull it rather than getting on top, you know, your finger on top and letting off, is a little bit more comfortable for me. But like I said, it is a little bit more expensive. But you know, if you change bikes or whatever, you can just integrate that into your other bikes. The wire loom is pretty tight. As you can see, they did a real good job of covering it up, you know, sealing up the wire loom so that it doesn't get all chafed. Much better than in the previous bikes. And it's hard to tell here, but this pack is super wide. It's much wider than the 23 models and the 2020 models. And the reason I believe it's wider is because these batteries are made with what they call 21700 cells. And the only way, in my calculation, you're gonna get 3500 watt hours in a battery pack this size is by using 21700 cells that have a 5 amp hour rating per each cell. That's the only way you can configure this out to get 50 volts, 71 amp hours. But 71 amp hours, this is a really, really, really good range battery. Now, if you're thinking how much more is that, I mean, just on a guesstimate right off the top, it's about 40% more. Your pack is 50 amp hours with the 2023 race, and now you're getting 71. So 20 amp hours more. It's about 40% of 50, right? So yeah, this is gonna get you to where you want to go, and you're probably gonna have much more fun ripping this bike around the trails and single track that we all love. So moving on to the frame again. See, this is the things that you don't really see. You see this brace here? This is an added brace. This does not exist on the 2023 race or Escape R models, and it is solid. It's like, I mean, it is two stanchions on either side just bracing this thing. I mean, when you seen Chris Baran take this thing off of jumps, you know, hitting those massive jumps, I mean, this is why you can do those huge jumps. And I wish Electric Motion would point these things out. You know, they can't just say like, oh, it's a stiffer frame. Like where? What makes it stiffer, right? This, and also, sheesh, they got more braces on the inside over here. Oh yeah, their Bluetooth module for the EM Connect on the Escape R is up. Oh, sorry, the Escape XR is up front because, as we will see at this moment, it is really clustered in the back. Now, if this looks odd to you, it's because this is an upgraded controller. This is the new SilixCon controller, and when I say new, I mean new to the bike. This controller has been out there for years now. It puts out 13 kilowatts. It puts out more power than its previous predecessor, the smaller controller, and it, you know, gives the bike just a different feel. It's a different tuning as far as the throttle response and whatnot. And like I mentioned in the other video, it's really good. I mean, right off the bat, it's smooth, and that's what we want. We want that smooth throttle, right? A lot of wires in here. If you ever had to work on these, it's kind of a task. You want to take a picture of it before you mess with it, just so that you can put everything generally back, because yeah, you don't want to mess anything up there. Okay, so this is one of the biggest improvements to the Escape XR. Now it's a Olay shock, same brand as your 2023 and earlier models, but obviously there is a reservoir on this shock, and with the reservoir, of course, it allows you to adjust your compression just like a regular shock. I believe it does have a rebound adjustment as well down there, and you have your high speed and low speed, or sorry, your compression adjustment up here that you can actually get to, you know, via the subframe to make some fine adjustments here. Now, obviously, I haven't messed with it yet. I feel like it could be a little bit stiffer for my weight, but maybe I'll slow up the rebound just a little bit. And yeah, this is just one more thing that makes the ride feel a lot better. I'm not sure if it's the length of the shock that changed or the length of the link. And just by looking at the link size just off the bat, it looks the same. So I believe possibly the shock length has ultimately adjusted the ground clearance or the ride height of this bike, because when I jump on this bike, I know the back is actually up, a lot more up, and it makes the bike sit a lot flatter, especially when you have the extended rake and the higher or longer forks in the front. So now the bike feels way more balanced. When I did my Escape X mod, I had upgraded forks in the front, but I didn't really want to go all the way and put an upgraded shock or maybe a longer shock in the back, and that made my bike kind of sit exaggeratedly like this a little bit, just to just to put it in perspective. So now you have a shock that can compensate for the front and make everything ride just a lot more balanced. All right, and last but not least, the one thing that I did tell you guys I was shocked to see, and I wish Electric Motion would have said this, because this would have put a lot of people at ease, myself included, and it would have been a very very good I guess accessory to add to their already good bike. Now for years, you know, we've been using this, right, our subframe for the EM, and it's been going on the outside of the you know, we've been using this frame and it's been going on the outside of the plastic just to give it a little stiff so that we can seat bounce, so we can get some really good traction sometimes when we're doing hard enduro. But look at this, guys. Look at this. Oh my god. Finally, Electric Motion, finally, after all these years of asking you guys for a subframe, here it is, an internal subframe for the plastic. Now, when I found this out when I was looking in the parts description for the bike, and I saw that they had a piece that was inside the cavity of the plastic, and I was like, what is that? And here it is. This is a subframe. Nobody talks about this. This is great, especially for this bike. You're gonna do a big jump. Sometimes you'll miss, and you gotta sit on the bike, or you're gonna land hard, and you're gonna get your foot off the peg, and you're gonna sit on the bike. You would destroy this plastic, and that's what we've been doing here in Hawaii. We've been taking these bikes so hard. We've been destroying these plastics, and that's why we came up with this, right? This is like, in retrospect, this looks much more complicated than putting it on the inside like this. But now that this exists, I mean, it comes with the bike. And if I'm not mistaken, this plastic subframe is the same for an E-Pure Race, an E-Scape R from 2020 to current. So if you guys want more stability in your subframe, you can just buy this part, and I'll put a link in the description. Well, I'll actually just put it on the screen, the part number. Go blow these guys up, because they need to make more of these, and they need to sell this with every single bike. I don't know if the 2024s are going to come with it, but if it already does, this is again something that has been missed in the marketing department as a accessory or a feature that is new with the 2024 models. And if you're wondering how it fits, it literally actually clips via here into the plastic there, so you won't have to take it on and off. It will come off with the plastic. But yeah, look, it just fits there and there, and now you have a very sturdy subframe that you can sit on if you need to, and you won't have to worry about breaking your $500 set of subframe plastics. You won't have to worry about breaking your seat. This thing is legit. So I don't know how much this costs, but whatever it is, it's probably worth it, because those plastics are not that cheap. So once again, thank you guys. We are going to get these connectors lubed up and ready for the customer. And also, again, thank you for following the page. Hope you enjoyed the two-part series of our Electric Motion E-Scape R breakdown. And if I missed anything, put it in the comments. I'll take a look. I'm really curious as to if I missed anything, but I'm pretty sure I got everything new with the bike, and like I said, more. So till next time, guys, ride with aloha.